Okay, and I'm going to go to this side of the room again. This chapter is about marketing and consumer behavior. What comes to your mind when you hear the word marketing? Shana.
And things that track buyers.
Things that track buyers or buyers.
Ads or
Ads,
commercials.
commercials, and things that track buyers, right? Or consumers, right? What else do you think of? What companies come to mind that you think are doing a great job in marketing? That must spend tons of money on marketing. Yes, Google, Apple, the large companies, Coca-Cola, Nike, right? The major brands that we are all familiar with. There's a reason why we're familiar with them. We're even if we don't own any of their products, we still know about them because they're doing such a great job in marketing and raising consumer awareness. That's kind of the first step that they do when they deal with consumers. First, they have to make consumers aware that they exist, right? And it goes from there, but we'll talk about the marketing process and the different functions of marketing today. Okay, so the functions of marketing is communicate society's needs and wants to the organization. So they look at what does society want, what trends are out there, what kind of products do they need, or if there are already products on the market, what functions are missing that consumers want. They find that out, and that's why Shana said they track consumers too and keep communicating with them and things like that, right? To find out what else they need, and then they communicate it back to the organization so the organization can successfully create or modify their existing products to become more competitive in the marketplace and become the choice for the consumer, right? They establish pricing strategies. We'll talk about different pricing strategies. The first intuitive thought when you think about pricing is you might think pricing is done by people that work in finance and accounting, but it's not, right? Because they don't know what the market is willing to pay. You have to know, of course, you have to know the cost of making your product or offering your service, and you have to make sure you get a profit. But at the end of the day, marketing is very, very highly involved in pricing, right? They promote products and their benefits, right? By, again, communicating with consumers. They distribute products. Does that mean marketing people go out and give products away? Would that be it? Not really, right? Although they do that. Sometimes there are promotions where they give away samples, but distribution means they choose the channels that they can use to get the finished product to the final consumer. We'll have more information on that as well in these slides. And they establish meaningful relationships with customers. So they can get even more information from the customer. So they can support the customer. So the customer is satisfied and continues buying from that company. And also beside that, also recommend you to his or her friends to buy from them as well. Or wear the brands on their t-shirts and things like that. So let's look at the evolution of marketing. Marketing has not always been like it is today. Why has there been have there been so many changes in marketing from the 1900s, early 19 something to today? What drove the change? Mostly, yes. The internet or technology in general, right? Yeah, technology and very much the internet created a huge change, right? But in the old days there was the production era. For a very, very successful product was the Model T Ford that was marketed in a traditional way. What do you think how it was marketed, or was it even marketed that heavily? There really were, actually it wasn't, because there wasn't a lot of competition out there. They created a car and they wanted consumers to like it and buy it, and consumers did. Versus today, you have focused more on the consumer, right? They focused on the product. That's why it's called the production era. We are going to focus on the product and put all our efforts into the product and coming up with something really attractive and efficient and that provides utility, right? Focus on production and produce it as efficiently and efficiently as possible with least amount of resources and as many as possible, right? The next era was the sales era. You had a lot of personal selling then. Examples of the Fuller brush, which I'm not familiar with, or the Electrolux. I'm not familiar with either, but I'm familiar with the Kirby vacuum cleaner. Have you ever heard that? They would go literally door to door and carry a vacuum cleaner with them and come to your house and show how it vacuums. The funniest thing I thought was, this was when I was young, really young, right? I thought it was hilarious. They had attachments that you could use to give yourself a haircut. A vacuum cleaner giving you a haircut. If you think it's strange that the vacuum cleaner company Dyson has now a very fancy hair dryer, it's not that far-fetched. The vacuum cleaner industry decades ago was already in the hair business in a way. I mean, not really directly related, but just to give you some comparison there, right? Anyway, then we had the marketing era. So that time was when companies started spending enormous amounts of money on commercials and advertisements, right? To get into the face of the consumers. Get time on primetime shows on TV. TV was a huge marketing tool because almost everybody watched TV after they came home from work, especially in America. The TV was on the moment you came home from work. And there were popular shows, great shows from those times that are still run, or repeated today, right? But the shows are always interrupted with commercials, right? As you know, and on regular TV. We had no Netflix back then. We had no on-demand streaming and things like that. We had to watch through the commercials. We couldn't even pause the TV. None of that, right? The most we could do is have a VCR, record the show, and then when you watch it, fast forward through the commercials, which takes a lot of time as well, right? But anyway, so that was the marketing era, really. And of course, all of these, by the way, are still present. But maybe not just production anymore. A company just doesn't focus on production, but they do all of these and so forth. They're not mutually exclusive. Companies are doing either one of them or all of them, right? So they can utilize all these tools, right? But anyway, so obviously the larger companies were able to invest more money into the marketing tools, such as commercials on TV, one-page advertisements in magazines and things like that, right? That's why we are more familiar with large companies, because they are capable of putting more money into marketing efforts so they can be in our faces. Then you started societal marketing, Body Shop, Starbucks. They started building relationships with customers, right? You got your local Starbucks. Do you know when the first Starbucks was opened and where? Does anybody have an idea? Not the exact year, but maybe what decade? I'm pretty sure it was the 90s. Somebody could, yes.
The first one was opened on March 30th, 1971 at Pike's Place Market in Seattle.
Oh, 71, wow. Okay, so see how much I know, right? I'm glad you looked that up, thank you. So 1971 in Seattle, right? But they became the local coffee shop. You go, you chat with people, you meet people and so forth, right? They have a little bit more of social responsibility also built into their marketing themes. We're here, we're part of your community and we take care of your community, right? And then you have the customer relationship era. Amazon and Ritz-Carlton are good examples. So what the customer relationship era brought to marketers is building really tight relationships with your customers, identifying your customers' preferences, needs, wants. What the Ritz-Carlton does, which right now is owned by Marriott, by the way, but they've done this, you know, they were one of the first hotel chains that really did that successfully. They have a database and they keep track of what you do, where you stay, what type of room you rent, what type of water you prefer, if you prefer a certain type of pillows, if you prefer a lower or higher floor, if you want to be there near the elevator, and so forth. They track and record all your details. So, and they have a database, customer relationship database, right? CRM, customer relationship management database. And anywhere in the Ritz-Carlton where this customer pings to make a reservation, they look up their, you know, they look up the customer's record and they immediately know, oh, Lale, she likes sparkling water instead of still water. She likes high floors on the higher level. She does not want accessible rooms. Blah, 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 right? And then they try to accommodate me as much as possible. When you search something on Amazon, when you go back to Amazon, it reminds you of the things you recently searched. It presents you with products, or, you know, when you first open the app, that you may have searched or that they think you may like. And this is again what Shana said, tracking, having tools to track customers. That's because of all the technology we have today, and the internet, and tracking, and social media, and we basically put our lives openly on the internet, so marketers can watch us, right, and use that information. And I did talk ahead of myself, so I'm just going to skip through these slides, making sure I didn't miss anything. I did talk about the production area. That was the Ford car, right? Sales area was greater competition for customers, so you had really strong sales people. The marketing concept, you develop products that meet customers' needs. The total organization is committed to provide the service that the customer would like or needs, or will make the customer come back or stay with that company. And they also focus on highest profits, right? That's the marketing concept era. Let's see here. And then the customer relationship era. So, you know, all the teams work together, the marketing team, the sales team, they provide feedback and support. So that's all part of customer relationship management. Any questions? You do marketing for nonprofit organizations. Marketing isn't necessarily about making money or profits. However, I have to mention again, nonprofit doesn't mean your services are free necessarily. There are many nonprofit organizations where we pay for the service. Can somebody name any? Give me a nonprofit organization that charges, and all of you are using it. There's not one person in this class that is not using that service. What do all of you have in common? What are all of you using? I know some of you know, you just don't say it. Education. CSM is a nonprofit organization, but we charge for tuition. Some of you get scholarships, some of you get grants, but in general, it's not a free service, except with some exceptions. Hospitals, very expensive, right? Educational institutions, hospitals, you go to Goodwill, you pay for your products that you buy, but it's a nonprofit organization, right? We're not going to go too deep into nonprofits, but one of the things I can say is they still want to make money because they need to pay their operating expenses. Their employees aren't all volunteers. Most of them have to make a living wage because they work full-time for the nonprofit organization. The exception is the profits they make have to be reinvested into the organization. Nobody gets to take them home. The founders of the nonprofit organizations can only pay themselves a salary, and there is a legal limit how much you can pay yourself as a director of a nonprofit, right? So that's the only difference, but just wanted to throw that out there to make it clear that nonprofit organization can still charge for services and make profits, but they get reinvested into the organization. We do have a nonprofit designation at the college, nonprofit, where you learn about this and you can even get a degree in public administration, right? Yeah. Anyway, so here's a nice ad. Drunk driving and buzz driving, no difference, right? You still get into an accident, the results are the same. So this ad is basically encouraging people not to drive drunk, even if they're just buzzed. Right. So let's talk about marketing strategy. This is target marketing, and we'll talk about the 4 Ps. The target market is what? Does anybody know what it means? Target market. You all should have an idea because you should have read the chapter. But can somebody kind of put it in their own words? What's a target market? Yes, Ty.
It's like a demographic name for it.
Yes, it's a demographic or it's a certain type of group of customers that they're aiming for, that think they are this customers most likely to buy their products, right? And if you don't have a target market, if you have not identified the segment that you're going after, you can't really create a product that will appeal to a specific market. And it's very difficult to create a product that will appeal to every single person in the entire world or in the entire marketplace, right? Because people have different preferences, different budgets and different needs and so forth, right? So you have to identify your target market, and based on your target market, you have to create your marketing mix, which is your product, your place where you sell it or the channels you use, promotions, how are you going to promote it, and the price. And we'll talk about that. And that's called the 4 Ps of marketing. So product is, you create product differentiation and develop an effective brand, right? Let me just peek ahead, make sure I don't have slides on these. So I can talk from here. So I don't talk ahead. Okay, here, so a product. So what does it mean differentiate a product? How can a company differentiate a product from a competitor's product? What are some of the things a company can do differently? We can maybe use a certain type of product. How about a baseball cap? What does that B on your baseball cap stand for? Yeah, what does that B? Huh? Boston, okay. So let's take a baseball cap. What can you do different on a baseball cap to differentiate yourself from your competitor? Because there's so many companies that sell these cappies, right? Yes. Different versions, like different colors. Yes. But a lot of companies will probably do that, right? What else? What else could you do different? Yes.
Design.
The design, you can make a different kind of design, right? Maybe have a certain design that nobody else is allowed to use, right? Yes.
Creative, like different quality, or to be flat room. Okay.
Different quality, different flat. Again, the design can be different. Yes, Ty?
Can you get a patent for your logo?
Hmm?
Patent your logo?
Patent your logo, yeah, so nobody else can use your logo, right? What else? Yes.
You can get like a professional baseball player to like endorse it and like give an idea to the people that it's a really cool hobby.
Yes, very good. You can get some professional baseball player to endorse it or even wear it and take some pictures of him wearing it, right? And, you know, have him endorse it. Now people want that one. And no other company can sell that because they don't, that baseball player only endorsed that brand, right? Yeah, so there are different things, and you can have a different snap, you can, you know, customize them maybe, things like that, right? So, and you know, through that you kind of develop an effective brand by being different, right? And by doing all your, and by marketing your product to the public, right? Price, it covers costs, and you have to cover costs, but you also have to price competitively, right? So price is one way you can differentiate yourself from your competition by offering lower prices, but that's not always advantageous because you are now, you could now drastically reduce your profits if you want to compete with the lowest price leader, right? So instead, it's probably better to find some other differentiation. Depends on your business model. There are companies that are marketing to be the low-cost leader. Do you know a company that has that slogan or something like that? Lowest price possible, they claim.
Ross.
Ross, dress for less, right? Yes, that's one, that's right. It's really very inexpensive compared to others, but the choice of products is very limited, right? Who else?
Walmart?
Yes, Walmart. Yeah, Walmart is known there. They're a low cost leader, and they usually are. Yeah. I have not, when I search products online or prices, usually Walmart is lower, even lower than Amazon, right? Yeah. So that is also still one way to differentiate, but regardless, you have to cover your costs. Promotions, is when you inform and persuade customers to buy and build positive customer relationships. Again, what we talked in the beginning, the ads, the communication, the social media interaction, and the interactive websites, sweepstakes you can do online to bring customers to your site and give perks and sales and all that stuff, right? That's promotions. And then place, choose the right distribution channel. How are you going to get your product to the customer? Are you going to ship directly to the customer or have the customer come to your place? If you are one small retail store individually owned, that's probably what you're going to do, right? You're going to have customers come to your store, or maybe even ship directly to the customer. But if you have if you want to sell nationwide or worldwide, you are going to likely use distributors and wholesalers to get your product throughout the market, right? So you can do a combination of both. Apple, for example, has Apple stores in almost every major mall in every major city. There's an Apple store, right? And they also use distributors. You can buy Apple computers at Best Buy. You can buy them at Target. I mean, wholesalers and retailers, right? Yeah. But those are the decisions that are made in the marketing department. So marketing process. So what you do is first you identify a market need. Let's think about a product that some of us need. Can somebody come up with a product that isn't quite available on the market today that you wish you had? Or maybe it's an existing product, but it doesn't have a function that you wish it had. Okay, I have an idea. I came to work this morning, it was really cold when I got up. I got up at 6:15 a.m. and you know, I live in South San Jose, so I have a long commute. I wanted to leave early before traffic starts, and it was really cold in my house and when I stepped out, so I wore these boots. And then by the time I got here, the sun was out and it's all warm now. Now my feet are too warm. I would love some shoes that are stylish, but maybe I can peel off a layer and then it becomes a summer shoe or something like that, right? So let's pretend that's a marketing need, that a lot of people want that shoe where they have a little bit zipper in the back, I unzip it and then I peel the top layer off and it becomes a little thinner. If it gets even harder, it can go as far as sandals, right? From boot to sandal. Let's say there's a market need to create a shoe that is a boot and can become also a sandal, right? So now we're going to conduct market research and develop a marketing plan. Let's do the market research in the class right now. How many of you would wear a shoe like that? Let's just, for the sake of fun, raise your hand, even if you wouldn't. So we are, let's say 30 people. So 11 out of 30 people would wear that. That's a little over 30%, not too bad. So, and we're going to say 30, it represents 30 million, which means 11 million people would wear a shoe like that. Yeah, I think I can go ahead and continue my marketing process and go to the next step. Now I'm going to identify target customers. We're gonna have a little more on that, but just quickly, who do you think is most likely to wear those shoes? Let's think about geographic areas because it's very weather related. What areas exist that have these temperature changes within the same day, like we had this morning? Yes, Ty?
Florida,
Florida. Does it get cold in Florida?
yeah.
It can be cold and warm. I'm not.
It rains.
Oh, the rain. So you could make it a rain boot and then a summer shoe, right? Yeah. Yes.
Hawaii.
Hawaii. Yes, definitely Hawaii. California, I think. Colorado, definitely. Yes.
Africa.
Africa. Okay. Well, yeah, many countries there, right? So we have a big geographic market. What about age? Let's do an age range.
All ages?
Babies, 80-year-old people, I don't know. You know what, when we get to the target market, when I explain the target market, we'll run this example through the target market, right? Yeah. So we'll have more on that. We also have, I think we have homework on target marketing, right? Implementing the marketing mix, the 4 Ps that we just talked about. Once you identify your target market, now you can create the 4 Ps based on what your target market wants. That's why it's so important to identify your target market before you even develop your final product or the type of versions you want to have. Because, for example, age is very important. Are you going to develop baby shoes or only adult size shoes or children to adult, right? So that's all based on your target market. And then you nurture a good customer relationship once you have established your market and started selling, right? Another thing you have to consider is the marketing environment. The marketing mix can be controlled by marketing managers, but the marketing environment consists of external forces that cannot be controlled. You can control what you do within your company, what you're going to work on, what products you're going to make, and so forth, but you can't control the external environment, right? The external environment is something you have no control over, but you can react to it, right? So here are some of the things in the external environment. Political and regulatory environments. Maybe a law comes out that says all shoes now have to have rubber soles. Not likely to happen, but let's say, right? Although most of them do, I think, right? Yeah. But, you know, if you sell food products, a new regulation could affect your production, right? Competitive environment. What's the competition doing, right? Social and cultural environments. What do people want? What's trending? What are some of the recent developments in society? Again, if you're selling food products, what do you think, what trends exist in food products? Lots of trends, right? What kind of trends do you see when it comes to eating that may not have been present 50, 60 years ago? That now a lot of food companies are targeting. Shana?
Fat-free, gluten-free,
Fat-free.
everything free.
Everything free, you're just gonna eat air, right? Yeah, no, I mean, health food, right? Some of it is diet restrictions, which we are much more aware of now, and how many people have dietary restrictions, such as gluten allergies, right? Or diabetes, right? Others are just health food trends. Vegan. A lot of restaurants now have vegan menus. Vegetarian has been around a little longer, but now you also have vegan, right? So, you know, you have to be aware of those trends to compete in the marketplace. The economic environment, right? In a downturn economy, people don't have a lot of money to spend. You might have to lower your prices, still making sure you're still making a profit and covering your costs, right? But that's going to affect the quantity of products you can sell and maybe the prices you can charge. So you have to be prepared for economical changes, right? Technological environment, you know, always keep up to date, not just with tech that's out there that everybody's using, but technology within your industry as well, right? And then the global environment, what's happening in the rest of the world? because it's our marketplace is very global. Companies are selling all around the world now, not just US companies to other countries, but other countries are selling here as well. So we have to pay attention to that, right? So again, that's the external environment. The internal is the purple here, or I don't know if I would call this purple, but again, the 4 P's of marketing. You tailor that all towards the customer, right? Quickly, just going over a marketing plan. It's a written document. It's a living document also. You don't just write it once and put it on the shelf. You continue creating it and developing for the future years and so forth. You write your marketing objectives. You perform a SWOT analysis. Did we do a SWOT analysis in this class yet?
Mhm.
We did, right? Yeah. So your strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Let me just go back real quick. Again, the marketing environment, the SWOT analysis is all based on the external factors, right? The external, not the SWOT analysis, but the opportunities and threats are the external factors. The strengths and weaknesses are the internal factors, right? So anyway, you do a SWOT, you select your target market, and you implement, evaluate, and control your marketing mix that you have decided to use. It's not just a one-time thing, and if it works, we're just going to continue. You have to continuously reevaluate. See, did you perform? Did you achieve your objectives? Did you overachieve them, and so forth, and adjust them as needed? Okay, let's talk about target markets now. Identifying your market. It's segmented into different areas. We have geographic, demographic, psychographic, and behavioral segmentation. So geographic is pretty simple, location, but not necessarily a certain location on the map, but are you targeting towards suburban areas or rural areas or urban areas and so forth? All of the above can be part of your segmentation, right? If you're selling a pickup truck that converts into a tractor, what area would you sell that? Obviously in rural areas and not in urban areas, right? So climate is very relevant with products like the one I made up just now about the shoe that you peel off, the boot you peel off, and eventually it can become a sandal, right? So that is very climate dependent, right? So a very large segmentation category is demographics. That consists of of specific characteristics of the actual customer, right? Here, some of them listed are age, race, religion, family size, ethnicity, gender, income, and education. So let's take this weird boot through this. And we already decided climate. It has to be a climate that varies within one day, right? We identified some areas, California, Colorado, Africa. Let's say we have a few other areas around the globe, right? But now let's do demographics. What do you think, what age range we should put for our target market for this product? Age 0? No, a newborn is not even going to wear shoes, right? Given that this shoe might cost more than a regular shoe, probably not even really small children, because their feet grow so fast, so parents are probably not going to buy expensive shoes, right? So let's say maybe 10 and up, right? So then we could start at that shoe size, right? How about race? Does race matter? No, a lot of those don't matter, irrelevant, right? Religion, irrelevant, doesn't matter, everybody wears shoes, right? Family size. Would it matter? Does it matter if you're married, if you're single, or if you're family of 5? Would that matter? Probably not, I would say. Yeah. You're not selling really a family product. You're selling a product that both families and single people will use, right? Ethnicity, irrelevant. Gender? What about gender? Good question, right? What do you think? Male, female, or both? How many of you females would be interested, or how many of you females think females would be more likely to wear those shoes? Or females are likely to buy these shoes? You think so?
Yeah.
Yeah. How many of you think males would likely buy these shoes? Yeah, I mean, I'm just thinking in general, women buy more clothes that include shoes. Right? And they're more into variations, design and stuff. Men's shoes are all the same. They're either athletic shoes or dress-up shoes. And they all kind of look the same with a little bit of variation, right? But look at women's shoes, how different they are. Right? So I would say I would actually probably not even create one for men. I would just make it a woman's shoe. Right? So income? Does income level matter? Now you say yes. Why does income matter? You're right.
Because you have to be able to afford higher quality and more, you know.
The higher price shoe. Let's say we're going to sell it, hopefully we'll be able to sell them at $100 a pair and up, right? You gotta have a certain level income to afford shoes like that. Education? Does education matter? Probably not that much. A lot of times education is also related to income, but it's not like an outrageously expensive product. It's just a little more than a regular shoe probably, so I don't think education would matter. The next segmentation is psychographic segmentation. That's people's lifestyles, personal traits, motives, and values. What do you think a woman who's likely to buy these shoes, what her lifestyle might be, or her values and so forth? Describe her. I think she'll be on the go, busy, working, fashion conscious, wants to be fashionable, but little comfortable, or at least not have hot feet, right? Yeah. So the motives is having your feet or your shoe wear adjusted to the temperature and not have hot or cold feet, right? Yeah. And behavioral is what benefits are being sought, volume usage, brand loyalty, price sensitivity, and product end use. So product end use here is pretty clear. You're going to wear the shoes, right? But the final consumer, how sensitive are they to price? You know, for this, you probably don't want somebody too price sensitive because you could have a little bit different price variations, but depends. If you have one price and you're not flexible with your price, you don't want anybody too price sensitive. Brand loyalty, what's brand loyalty? What does it mean to be brand loyal?
You always go back to it and you rely on it.
Yeah.
Go to.
You trust that brand, you go back and buy from that brand, right? Yeah, you go back to that brand. Anybody have any brand loyalty with any product? That you prefer this brand or one brand over another?
Apple.
Apple, yeah, a lot of people prefer Apple, even it is one of the most expensive out there, right? But people still are willing to pay that much because they're brand loyal. Yeah. So anyway, volume usage, how often do they buy shoes and things like that, right? So that's target markets. That's what our homework is about as well. Now I'll talk a little bit about the homework after I'm done with the lecture. Consumer behavior is the next topic. It's the way individuals or organizations search for, evaluate, purchase, use, and dispose of goods or services, right? So, you know, how do you start your process when you recognize a need that you need to buy something? How do you evaluate products? Where do you go? What websites do you visit? Where do you shop from? How much do you buy? Are you likely to go back, or do you keep the product for a long time until it doesn't work anymore, or do you change every year? Things like that, right? So consumer behavior is very, very, it's a very important resource for marketers to look at when they decide on their marketing mix, the 4 Ps, right? they can select the most profitable target markets and implement the proper target, marketing mix, right? A profitable target market is not only good, doesn't just depend on the size of the target market, but also on the dollar amount that the market is willing to spend on a specific product, right? So this is the buying process. Let me just peek ahead real quick. Yeah, okay. So when you decide to buy something is usually when you have a need recognition. Maybe you're in class and all the pens in your backpack, you take them out one by one, you want to take notes and none of them work. You have pens and you have pencils and you've just had it, right? The person sitting next to you only has one pen, so it's like, oh, you're frustrated. You're going to do a search on pens now. You're going to Target that afternoon and you're going to look for pens. That's okay. So you have the need recognition. You just recognized that you need something. You're driving home on your way. There's a Target. You stop by. You do your information search at Target now without even looking online. Some people will go online, maybe not for a pen, but for other products, right? You evaluate alternatives. You're standing in front of on the aisle that sells pens and pencils at Target, and you look at each of them. You look at the price. You look at the functions, the color, and maybe you can test the grip or something like that. So you look at all the different alternatives, evaluate them, and then you make a purchase or no purchase decision. Let's say you do decide on a pack of 4 pens of something, and then afterwards you also have your post-purchase evaluation. Next day you go to class, you take out your pen, you start writing, and breaks. Frustration. You still have the receipt, you take it back to Target, right? But anyway, so that's the buying process. And at every step, there's something else happening in your mind. And there's a certain place your mind is going to be, or you are going to be, whether it's at Target in the store, or whether it's online, Google search engine, right? So again, that's where marketers can catch your attention, or want to catch your attention, right? At the shelves at Target, maybe they have a very fancy packaging that catches your attention. Online on a Google search, maybe it's a nice ad that you're likely to click on because it has the right keyword in it. So that's any questions about the buying process? What influences decision making? A lot of things, right? So just want to peek ahead. Yeah. Okay. So there are socio-cultural influences: culture, subculture, social class, family, and peers. Let's get back to you thinking about whether you should purchase this strange shoe that I suggested, right? Who could influence you? What kind of socio-cultural influences could be present that either sway you to buy or not to buy this product? Yes, Brendan.
Your friends are like popular people.
Yes, your friends, popular people. A lot of it is your friends, your peers, because subconsciously you're going to think, what are my peers going to think when I go and I cross my legs and it's gotten hot and I peel off a layer of the shoes, right? Are they going to say, what the heck is that? I can't believe you're wearing that. Or are they going to say, dude, that's really cool. Where'd you get those shoes? I want a pair of that, right? So your peers, your colleagues, your family, and your dating partner or whatever, right? So all that can have a big influence on you, right? Psychological influence, your motivation, perception, attitudes, and learning, right? Attitudes in general towards products or towards companies, right? Some people have a, anti-consumerism attitude. They don't like fast fashion, things like that. Maybe they will buy one of those pairs of shoes because you only need one pair for the entire year. And if it's durable and it lasts, right? Maybe you could even add something like, if you get tired of the color, you can buy another cover with a different color or something like that, right? Yeah. Situational influences, physical, social surroundings, and the type of products purchased, right? And then marketing mix influences. Again, this is where the marketing department can have a lot of influence. Product, price, promotion, and place, right? They all want to have every company wants to have a bit of your money or a lot of your money, so they're all competing. So they're going to try to influence you at any of these steps of the decision-making process to get you to buy from them. All right, last topic, I think, the difference between business to business, business to business and business to consumer market. Business to business market is when one business sells products or services to another business, right? It's a different market than the consumer market. Business to consumer market is when a business sells to consumers or individuals like you and me, right? Different things happen. So the market structure in the business to business market, there are fewer customers, right? If a company makes construction equipment, they're not going to have millions of customers like Coca-Cola might have, because they have a consumer product. But a construction equipment manufacturer might only have 500 customers, but be successful because it's very, very expensive equipment, right? They have large volume purchases. Sometimes they're geographically concentrated, right? Versus not the case in the business to consumer market. Name of the buying unit, usually nature of the buying unit, usually you have buyers in the companies that need those products or purchasing departments, right? And they have buyers. And then on the other side, you also have salespeople on the seller side, highly professional personal salespeople, right? It's less sophisticated. You have a lot of times you have retail in the business to consumer market, right? Purchasing process, again, I already said highly trained buyers and sellers actually, but from the buyer's side, right? And then in the business to consumer market, you don't have highly trained professionals, maybe a little bit of retail training. I'm sorry, we're talking about the buyers, okay? So we're just consumers, we don't have education in how to buy. But these people, these buyers have education how to buy, right? They've been trained in it, we haven't been. We make the purchasing decisions, and the company, usually it's made as a team and so forth, right? Anyway, not a lot of personal selling, but more of mass advertising. All right, I'm going to stop the slides now. And the recording.